You've seen the headlines, marriage is becoming obsolete. But before our culture gives up on matrimony, maybe we should consider what marriage still has to offer. This is the CitizenLink Report. I'm Stuart Shepard, along with Glenn Stanton, who is focused on the family's Director of Global Family Formation Studies. Hi, Glenn.
That's exactly right. Hey, Stuart.
That's
how are
an
you?
Impressive title.
Thank you. I worked on it for a long time.
You're definitely the right person for this particular topic today. According to Pew Research, nearly 40% of Americans say they think marriage is becoming obsolete. What do we do with that?
Well, first what we do is read the report itself rather than the news stories. Guess what? Just because the USA Today reports it with a particular headline does not necessarily mean that's the real story. That's the bigger thing that we need to understand is the rest of the story, the bigger story. And the Pew story is really a story of kind of equal good news and bad news.
It strikes me that the way the question is posed, is marriage becoming obsolete, that it's outward facing. What do you think is happening in the culture? But it's very different when you talk to them about what they personally think about marriage and what their aspirations are.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing is the real story here. I mean, first of all, marriage has been in a very unhealthy place. I mean, all the indicators are moving in absolutely all the wrong directions. Cohabitation is skyrocketing and has been doing that for the past 40 years. Out-of-wedlock childbearing has been skyrocketing like crazy, especially among 20 and 30-something women. Divorce has kind of leveled out at least, but marriage is declining. And so when we look kind of just demographically, the indicators are not good. But when you look at attitudes, how people feel about marriage, you know what? People still feel very positive and very romantic, if you will, in a very best sense of the word, about the prospects of them marrying one day.
Here's a stat that goes into what you were just talking about. In 2008, according to Pew Research, only 26% of people in their 20s were married. That's way down from years ago. They're much more inclined to think favorably of cohabiting. I think we all know that just from being out in the culture. In fact, 44% of all adults say they have cohabited at some time in their lives. It is quite a shift going on.
Well, it is quite a shift. I mean, cohabitation is really growing. I mean, I often say if we're betting people and we wanted to bet on that family form that is growing by leaps and bounds, we would bet on cohabitation. But if you want to bet on that family form that is more likely to provide the kind of good things we're looking for in life, it wouldn't be cohabitation.
What's the difference? I mean, when you say good things, what are you talking about?
Well, in terms of just like general happiness, contentment with life. In fact, the Pew study showed this, that they asked people in different family settings, how content and happy are you with life? The marrieds were far more likely than anybody else. The next was widowed. The next was single under that. They were much more likely to report being contented and happy. But it doesn't just end there. It's having to visit the doctor for physical or mental illness, earning more money, sexual satisfaction, contentment with your work, being employed and being successful at your work, being able to earn more money, save more money. I mean, really, every indicator that we can look at for human well-being, marriage elevates that human well-being, and cohabitation looks more like singleness than marriage does.
I don't have a statistic for this, but I think if you went out and asked people who were living together, what's your goal here? They would say, well, we're afraid of divorce. Our parents are divorced. We don't want to go down that road. So we're trying this out first because we want to have a successful marriage when we finally make that decision. But that's not how it works.
Well, absolutely. That's actually what the Pew studies, they asked different people, do you think that marriage is in your future, and do you hope to be married one day? The cohabitors were more likely than the non-cohabiter, non-marrieds to say, yes, we want to get married someday. What they didn't do was break it down by gender. Yeah. Women are more likely to say, yes, we're cohabiting with the goal of getting married. The guys are more likely to say, surprise, surprise, no, we're just hanging out and having fun. But that's the case. Cohabitation used to be in the 70s this kind of anti-marriage sentiment. Who needs marriage? Who needs this piece of paper? Who needs some court legal guy to tell us that our love is real? But now people are cohabiting to kind of, they're sort of the training wheels of the relationship to make sure that it will really work before they make the big plunge. In a weird sort of way, it's more of a pro-marriage attitude to make sure that they get it right before they tromp into marriage, making sure that their feet are clean and that they can survive well there.
But does it lead to a more successful marriage when you get there?
It does not. I mean, that's actually the interesting thing, that one of the things that a couple can do to bag their chances of succeeding in their marriage is to live together before marriage. I mean, Time and time again, the social sciences show that. They call it the cohabitational effect. And they're not debating whether that happens. The social scientists are debating why that happens. Why does cohabitation tend to lead to less successful marital relationships?
There are a lot of people right now watching this video looking at you saying, you prove it, because it's clearly not true what you just said. We're experimenting with this to have a more successful marriage. That's our goal. That's why we're doing this. Why are you telling us it doesn't work?
Well, because there are researchers, not Christian researchers, not conservative researchers, who have studied immensely large populations of cohabiting couples across the socioeconomic spectrum and looked at the impact that cohabiting has among later relationships. And you can't say all of them, but nearly all of them have found, I mean, the overwhelming tide of the research and the findings is that marriage tends to diminish future relationships.
Cohabiting tends to.
I'm sorry. Yes, cohabiting tends to.
Marriage would also diminish future relationships.
That's exactly
in a different
right.
way.
Once they're tied up. But no, it's cohabitation tends to diminish future relationships, whether they be married relationships or just other friendly relationships. And that is because of the nature of the cohabiting relationship itself. There's a lack of commitment there. And therefore, the couples in those relationships learn to negotiate with each other, actually in very unhealthy ways, because they have to manipulate. They don't see it that way, but they're manipulating and conniving and kind of making deals to keep the individual in the relationship. Whereas what marriage does is it binds the couple.
We're in this forever.
Absolutely.
It's
it's sort of like you hit the shore, you're burning the boats. You know what? We're not going back. And that changes the nature of the relationship for a married couple. The other thing is for the extended family. Think about this. You're a father-in-law. Your son, who's interested in your daughter, comes to you and wants the loan for his first house to buy it. If he's cohabiting with your daughter, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, if he is married and he's made the commitment, you are all too happy to help as much as possible. That's part of the difference, that the commitment makes a huge difference in how we interact with each other.
Let's talk very briefly about the definition of the word family. This is something else the Pew Research study looked at. 80% of Americans call an unmarried couple with children a family. Now, a smaller percentage would call an unmarried couple a family without children, which is interesting that children to them is what defines family. 63% would call a same-sex couple with children a family. Now, I know I'm walking into the line of fire here, but how should we define family? Is there a simple definition?
Well, it's interesting. People ask me that all the time. People ask us here at Focus, and we define family the way the Census Bureau defines family, with some small caveats. But it's basically a group of people related by blood, marriage, or adoption, living, together or outside. But it's those people connected by blood, marriage, or adoption. Now, with those states that have same-sex marriage, I mean, there are people of the same gender legally married. We would say to that any family that intentionally, whether homosexual or heterosexual, excludes one half of humanity, either male or female, and says, no, we don't need male or female in our family, that is not a good, healthy human family, because it's excluding, saying, you know what, we don't need men, we don't need women. And it's denying what humanity really means in our gender distinctness.
Yeah, you used the term healthy there. What's unhealthy about it? How would you express that?
Well, in the sense of, I mean, it comes down to, do we think that moms and dads are just simply preferential? You know what, if you've got a mom, if you've got a dad, that's great, but you don't need them. That's exactly what the same-sex marriage proposition says. That if you want a dad, that's up to you, but you don't need a dad. Or if you want a mom, that's great, but you don't absolutely need a mom. And that is humanly unhealthy. There's no culture that has ever previous to this time structured itself by saying that male and female are not necessary and essential for the family. That's from a Christian point of view, but it's also from an anthropological human point of view, because we find it in all cultures, every place, at all times.
Now, you hinted at this earlier, but I'd like to end on this positive note. The headline said, marriage becoming obsolete, ? That sort of thing. But the actual study found the vast majority of people who are not married desire to be married.
Absolutely.
And those who are married place a high value on the marriage that they're in.
Absolutely. It's when we look at how we perform and how we behave, we would not think that we really care for marriage. But when you actually ask people what their desire is for their lives, marriage is a big goal. And this actually should have been the headline out of the Pew Report. They say on page 36, the youngest generation has the strongest desire to marriage, a reflection of their stage in life. And there are no significant gender differences in marriage intention among the millennials. Both millennial guys and gals deeply want to get married. And I think, Stuart, that is, generations are formed by what they were denied. You look at the generation of the Depression, they grew up to be the most resourceful, successful, materialistic, successful generation. This generation has been denied marriage and been denied strong, cohesive families, and they desperately want that. And that's a great opportunity for the work we do here at Focus on the Family, but also churches out there to put out a banner in their community to say, we can help you meet your goal of wanting to have a firm, healthy, successful, thriving family. It's a great opportunity for the church.
And it seems so simple, but culturally, we aren't really helping people understand, young people understand, how to make their way into a successful marriage. We have all these cultural influences that are suggesting all kinds of immoral things, but there's not a strong force saying, here's how you do that.
You think about this, Stuart. If you want to lose weight, if you want to invest your money well, if you want to eat healthy, you can go on the websites, and there are hundreds of programs to show you how to walk through that. Yeah. We don't really have that about family. Here's where you start, here's where you go to the next thing, to be intentional. We just think that, well, family will just happen. Well, it doesn't just happen. We have to be very deliberate about how to make it happen. And that's a big role of not just the churches, but Christian community, organizations like Focus on the Family and others, to come alongside the young people and say, your goal, your wish for successful marriage is a good goal. And we have more information now in books and resources and materials to help you do that successfully, and just link those people up with what they need and show them that you can achieve that goal and how to do it.
All right. Glenn, thank you for your insights and your comments. Great conversation. I really enjoyed that. And thank you for watching. We'd like to know what you think about marriage and family. What are your responses to the conversation we just had? You may always write to us at mail@citizenlink.com. Remember, stand tall and be heard.